him out a little bit longer there. You need to be a little taller, I would imagine. Without further ado, by the way, that show's kicking ass, and I love it, man. And I do. I get a lot of topics from it. Holy cow. I mean, you kidding me? That was a gold mine today. Without further ado, my friend from Birds 365, Big Z, Zander Krause.
What's up, Big Sills? How you doing, brother?
How you, man?
I'm all right, man. I'm living good over here. It's a little warm out today, finally. I'm ready for some consistent warm weather in these parts.
They want me to come to Philly for, like, the preseason or something. I'll be willing to do that.
Yeah, okay. I'm not entertaining those conversations. I'm not entertaining those conversations.
I am telling you, I will.
I'm going to have to go backdoor you. I'll call John Morgan and say, tell Dan you need him in Philly for something, because then maybe he'll actually show up.
Wait a minute, I get it. Your sister calls, hey, Dan, we're going to put an event together for, I need Sileo.
Exactly. Something like that. That would work.
Yeah. And then Dan goes, hey, you need to be in Philly. Okay. All right, man. So let me ask you flat out here. So the tight end position here, what's their plan?
I have no idea what their plan is. Why is there no contingencies brought in ever in the last 2 years?
Why is that a problem to ask that too? When people get upset and they think, okay, look, like you said, I just want to know the plan. Where are they going?
Yeah, they've gotten a plan in every other position. Even if you don't like the plan, they've at least addressed that there is a plan. This time they waited until Timu, and they picked up Harrison Bryant and Kylan Granson, two guys who really haven't done much of anything in their career, signed them for bargain basement deals, and then they're going to let Dallas Goedert walk. Probably a top 6, top 7 tight end in the league. You could argue a top 5, depending on who you talk to.
Yeah.
And you're going to let him walk for those guys? I mean, I don't know. This seems un-Eagles to me, because even when Howie makes a decision, I'm going to move on from a player, and we might not like all of those decisions, there's at least something there to back up, or at least something there that Howie has done to prepare for that decision. Even Zach Ertz, we got Dallas Goedert. When we had Brent Selleck, we drafted Zach Ertz. We haven't done shit. Like, are you telling me that the plan is Harrison Bryant and Kylan Granson? Maybe those guys pan out. Maybe they have something that they've never showed anywhere else that they have that they can show to Philly. But I don't like the plan. The other thing I'm wondering is tight end the new running back in this offense? Think about it. We wanted to be a passing offense for 8 years. Last year, we became a bona fide running offense. Is tight end the new running back in the offense?
They eliminated it.
Right? I mean, I don't know if you can eliminate it because you need it further running game.
You're going to add run blockers for Barkley.
Right. I mean, the other thing that I don't love about it is, winning a Super Bowl. There's a lot of great teams every year in the NFL. There's always a lot of teams that are really good or have great years. The Bills were great last year. The Lions were great last year. The Eagles were great. The Chiefs were great. There's always great teams. The Ravens were great. There's always great teams. It's the rare teams. It's the teams that have everything, that have all the little pieces that show up in the untimely or the moments you don't expect. And that's what puts you over the top. And last year, we didn't use Dallas Goedert much. He had 480 yards in the regular season. But when the playoffs came and A.J. Brown was a focus for opposing defensive coordinators and Saquon Barkley didn't have his best game in the Super Bowl, the guy that stepped up in the playoffs for the most part in the passing game was Dallas Goedert. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you he's the most important part. That's not my point. But my point is that Super Bowl teams have special components. And special components are when you lose one, you have another. When one guy goes down, you have another, right? And he was a big part of that last year of when you took away Barkley, when A.J. Brown wasn't getting going, when Devontae Smith didn't get his targets, Dallas Goedert was the guy who held that offense together. You remember the game earlier in the year, he had 175 yards in one game, which shows you how little they really used him in the regular season, because I just mentioned he had 480 yards and 175 of them came in one game. So I don't love this approach right now by the Birds. Now, if you load the team with defensive talent, maybe I understand it a little more. But right now, I don't really see what they're trying to do.
Let me ask you here, okay? Is there anybody in the draft you think is better than him outside of maybe the kid from Penn State that is as productive as him? I
No.
mean,
Colston Loveland is a good player. I think he'll be great as a pass catcher, but I don't think he's going to be as versatile as what Goddard is. And this team is obviously a team that needs versatility at tight end. Like you can't, it's almost like Sills. The weird part about Goddard is with the way they changed the offense this year, that style of tight end almost increased in value in Philly because you could have looked 2 years ago and said, Goddard gets injured a lot. If we're going to have, look for an elite pass catcher, you could go another route. But now that you're a running team, tight ends that can do everything have become so rare in the NFL. Even the best of the best tight ends don't really block well. I mean, you have a couple guys that can do it, but Brock Bowers is okay at it at best. He's a great
Travis
pass
Kelce's
catcher.
never been
Travis
great.
Kelce can never do it. So Goddard's become more valuable in the style of player that he is, and they're going to let him go. We'll see what they end up doing here. I am wondering if, maybe it doesn't matter as much as we think, and he's the safety. He is the C.J. Gardner-Johnson of the offense.
Okay, what's the plan at corner?
This is an interesting one because I am now more believing now than ever that Malaki Starks is not only a realistic possibility, but is likely if he slips down past 25. It's likely almost, I think, past 25. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to do that. If Walter falls or another one of those defensive linemen falls, they could still take him. But just based on watching what they're doing and their approach right now to this offseason and the top 30 visits and all the things, safety is clearly something that they want to address. So that tells me, one, that they're not sold on Sidney Brown. Now, if you draft a safety, what does that mean on what you do for any of the other corners? Maybe nothing. Does that mean you keep Cooper in the slot? Does that change what you do with Cooper in the slot? I don't know. Remember, Malachi's a guy that can play some slot. He played some slot at Georgia. I don't think they're going to use him that way, but maybe, look, how many times have I said to you, I don't think safety is a valuable enough position. Well, what about a guy that can play safety and slot? Is that valuable enough? Maybe.
Let me ask you,
maybe that's how they view it, and that might change what happens at corner, but I have a hard time believing they're going into this thinking Keely Ringo is it. I think Keely Ringo is going to be good, but you haven't seen it at all.
Who was the slot player in the 22 season? Marcus Epps?
No. It
Avonte
was
Maddox?
Avonte Maddox.
Okay,
And he was often injured. Yeah.
So did Cooper DeJean make that position on the defense more valuable because of his play?
Absolutely, I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
So he elevated that position.
Yep, 100%.
Importance, right?
Yep.
Well, don't you think the safety position, when he had 12 turnovers in the 2 Super Bowl years and the guy you had, he's elevated that position, especially with a coach that has and believes in too high safety?
Yeah,
it's not called too high corner.
You're right. I agree. I thought the thing you said about Vic made a lot of sense. Maybe Vic is thinking, we just achieved number one, and we didn't. Josh Sweat was a good player. Josh Sweat was not a game-changing edge. Nolan Smith was good last year. He wasn't a game-changing edge. Maybe he's thinking with Nolan, with Uche, with Ojulari, with Jalix Hunt, and with a second or third round draft pick, I'll be all right. But I thought your point was really good. Maybe he does want that safety. Maybe they identified that safety's valuable, and we have to see this through, and they just didn't like the guy.
Why? Ask yourself the positions that he feels most comfortable at. The 2 tackles, 2 linebackers. Last year, the 2 safeties. The corner came in and played great. And the slot, you had a slot. Hey, do you agree? Last year, Johnson had 6 turnovers. Cooper played out of his mind, and Reed elevated his game. The 2 linebackers were the best linebacking play in 5 years, maybe since 17. You had your best linebacker play, and your 2 tackles were instrumental in being a run-stopping defensive football team. You won the Super Bowl with marginal pass rushers. Or how about this? I'll take that back. Marginal outputs. There were not. Dude,
Right.
8 sacks in a league that teams throw 50 times a year, or 50 times a game. Come on,
Right.
man. We're not talking about 18 passes that per attempt. We're talking about teams that throw the ball 35 to 45 times a game. How many times did Burrow throw the ball in that Cincinnati game? Again, 8 sacks is I think 8 sacks, if you want to be a decent pass rusher in today's NFL, is the floor, not the ceiling.
Yeah.
That's the floor when you want to get paid big money, Zander? You start getting in at 13, 14, 15 sack range. There's a reason why Hassan Reddick, who was a train wreck last year, he's still signed for $14 million. He was a train wreck. He had 1 sack. Think about this.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude.
1 sack in the Bucs, who are known for defense, signed a guy for $14 million, who was a train wreck a year ago because they see the value in the player.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy talk. Josh Sweat's a good example, bro. Josh Sweat got 20. What do you get? 18 million?
18.5. And what's his name?
And what do you have? 6.5 sacks last year? 8 sacks?
Yeah, he got paid mostly for his production in the postseason, what he did. That's what really shined for them, what they did. Because
same with Milton, by the way. Milton had a productive postseason as well.
He did. What about the comment, man? I mean, Vic wants that because he's looking at the heart of the defense versus the edges of the defense.
Yeah, look, you might be right about that. You might be right about this. This whole thing is, it does make a lot of sense. Like Starks makes sense from the Vic Fangio approach, from what they were able to accomplish last year with edge versus safety play. It maybe makes sense in terms of, I think there is going to be a run on edge rushers because, hell, we just talked about Josh Sweat. He was a good player, not a great player, and he got $18 million. So that tells you what that market is, which means I think a lot of teams early are going to draft edge rushers like crazy. And sitting at 32, Starks could be the guy I could see falling to 25, 26, 27, 28. Maybe that's where Howie pounces. Maybe it happens, man. I could see it.
How about this? So
would you be happy with that pick?
Oh, well, Malaki?
Yeah.
Oh, sensational.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what
I mean. I really like the player. I do really like the player.
I think that's the pick, actually.
He's just a sound football player. He's very fundamental. He's very great instinct, very productive, great instinct, good in coverage, good tackler. Like, he does the things of playing football well, right? It's not like an athletic thing or anything like that.
Profile, big time program, a lot of winning, titles,
a lot of games played for them, dude. And Georgia's a place. We all know Georgia's a place, man, where that talent comes and goes, man. You better be on your P's and Q's if you want to play 39 games at Georgia or whatever he played.
That's crazy.
I think it was in the 30s. Yeah, I think it was mid-30s for him. 36.
That's unbelievable. That because you in a program like that, like Bama and Ohio State, you're rotating so many guys to keep so many people happy that to get 40 games starts at Georgia is
39 consecutive games for Georgia.
That's insane. That's great.
Insane.
Bro, come on, man.
Yeah, that's wild, man.
Mike Green versus that. Come on.
Also, I mean, I know you can't legislate injuries and past performance isn't indicative of future results, but 39 straight games in the SEC. Guy's obviously a player that can handle some physicality. Doesn't have injury concerns to this point.
Let me get this right in his 4 years at Georgia. So this guy's been going against Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith in those 40 games. He's been going against all the greatest wide receivers that have come out of that conference, playing in the secondary, those great running backs in that conference, and the quarterbacks and the coaching that are in that. And that program's lost like 6 games in 4 years. Come on, bro. What are we talking about? You're talking to me about a guy from Marshall? Get the fuck. Hey, how many corners have you guys brought in on visits?
I'll tell you in a second. Corners and safeties or just corners?
DBs.
All right, let's go DBs. I'll pull it up for you in a second. Give me the...
And I'll go over here. Let's see here.
All right, here it is.
Go ahead.
All right, so you got... I'll start at the beginning of when we started getting reports. First 4, we got reported were offensive tackles. Then you had Kentucky cornerback Maxwell Hairston. That's number 1. Then you had Kansas State cornerback Jacob Parrish, number 2. Slot player, probably second, third round for him. Then you had Ole Miss cornerback Trey Amos. That's 3. He's probably a late round 1 player. Could sneak in around 1. I don't see it. Probably a round 2 guy. Then you had safety from Penn State, Jalen Reed.
Yeah.
Then you had the USC cornerback, Jalen Smith. Then you had Georgia safety, Malaki Starks. Then you had Navy safety, yesterday got reported, Raywan Lane III. And then you had Minnesota cornerback, Justin Wally. So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 corners or safeties. If you go straight corner, it's 1, 2, 3, 4.
8 DBs they've
4
brought in
corners and 4 safeties.
to take a look at, and they've signed Dory Jackson,
Yep.
Fields, this guy Andre Sam, this guy Perry Nickerson, and AJ Woods.
Which
So
most of those guys aren't going to be worth a shit.
9, 10, 11, 12, 13 players that are in the secondary that they've signed and that they've brought in to take a look at. What do you think they think of their secondary right now, bringing 13 players in to take a look at and players that they have signed? I mean, how do you think they see their secondary right now?
I don't know. I think, honestly,
Don't you think that's a lot of volume?
I think what you mean on visits or guys they already have?
Signs. I mean,
they
believe they have the guys. If they believe they have the guys in the buildings, that's a lot of.
I don't think all those guys you just named. I mean, it sounds like a lot of quantity, but not a lot of quality, and that's why they're still looking. I mean, Sills, hear me out. I mean, I'm not disputing you. I'm just saying, why would you bring in 8 out of 30 visits on defensive backs if you felt good about your defensive backs? You don't feel good about defensive backs, no matter how many guys you have in that room.
I'm adding the guys that you signed. Those are bodies. Those are
bodies. They're most likely camp bodies.
That's right. Those are the 90 guys you're trying to fill your roster post June 1. I get it.
You need 90. Remember, I think people forget that you need 90.
So
not every name is a guy who will be on the roster.
On the collective bargaining agreement, you have to have 90 post June 1. However, your visits are 9 dudes. 2. I mean, so let me ask you this one too now. How many edge rushers have they brought in?
All right, let's go back to the top. Edge, SMU edge, Elijah Roberts. Boston College edge, Donovan Izaraku. University of Miami, Florida, Miami, Florida edge, Tyler Barron. They have UCLA edge, Oluwafemi Oladejo. He's a good player. Femi, that's that Femi Oladejo.
I like
then you have, defensive tackle, right? Just edges.
Oh, just edge.
Texas A&M edge, Nick Scorton. And then you get, that's all of them.
So you brought in 5 edge rushers and you signed 1, 2, 3. You signed 3 edge rushers and you brought.
I thought we just signed 2. Oh no, you signed Patrick Johnson. That's right. There's 3 edge.
There's 3 edge guys, and there's 8 edge guys that you have either spoken to or signed. How do you think they feel about their edge players now? I think they like 2 of them. I don't know if they like all of them. They don't believe in Huff, because don't you believe that that's a lot of volume too? You're talking 8 different guys that you've either signed or brought in to take a look at.
I think here's what they're banking
on. Especially when you're dismissing tight end and you brought none in. How many offensive linemen that you brought in?
A lot. The first 4 were offensive tackles. You brought Jalen.
For depth and right guard.
Iowa State offensive tackle Jalen Travis, NC State offensive tackle Anthony Belton, Purdue offensive tackle Marcus Mbow, Oregon offensive tackle Josh Connerly. Most of those guys are probably first-round picks. You brought in William and Mary guy. He's a later-round pick, but a guy who graded out super high. Interesting player in this draft. Charles Grant. Going to be interesting to see where he could go. You got the Ohio State guard, Donovan Jackson. You got the Georgia guard, Dylan Fairchild. You got West Virginia offensive tackle recently, Wyatt Millum. And that's it on those guys.
So you've brought in guys. You made a trade for a guard. So aren't these the 3 places you're looking at the draft that they're going to look? They're going to look at secondary, whatever that looks like. They're going to look at edge and O-line.
Edge and O-line. And defensive tackle, too. They brought in defensive tackles. They brought in Shamar Turner from Texas A&M. They brought in TJ Sanders from South Carolina. They brought in Tyleek Williams from Ohio State.
Any linebackers? Any linebackers? Any linebackers?
No linebackers.
No linebackers. No tight ends.
And then 2 running backs. That's it. That's all of them. 8 defensive backs. The edge rushers we talked about. The offensive linemen that we talked about. 2 running backs, and that's it.
Aren't they telegraphing what they're looking at?
Except they 100% are telegraphing what they're looking at. There's without a shadow. That's why my original take of
especially the way they've drafted with.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to my boy in the chat, Brandon Howard, because me and Brandon used to go back and forth about this probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he was like, "Dude, I love Malaki Starks," and I'm like, "Brandon, I do too, but I don't think the Eagles are going to do that." Now I'm looking at what they've done in their top 30 visits, and I'm like, Brandon's right. I mean, they're looking at safeties. They're looking at corners. We can't rule this out. It'd be naive for me to put my opinion of what I think they're going to do, above what they've actually shown us that they're interested in. It's not that diverse of a top 30, bro. It's not like they got one of every position in there.
No, they don't. And as a matter of fact, the 30, okay. Now, and I wanted to, and I heard John say this today, and John just didn't follow through with when he heard what Greg Cosell said. Greg Cosell compared Walter Nolan to Jalen Carter. Bro, he's not comparing Jalen Carter Eagle. He's comparing Jalen Carter Georgia.
He's also comparing traits. I think sometimes people over, you know what I mean? Like you're over. Yeah.
I mean, nobody's comparing.
I mean, when Jalen Carter came out in the draft and you said you see Jerome Brown, you didn't. He might be as good as Jerome Brown, but you didn't legitimately say that as he's going to be the next Jerome Brown. You said I see traits and things that he does that remind me of Jerome. I
saw Jerome do at Miami, and I saw him do at Georgia. That's why I don't get. You know why I'm pretty good at picking these guys? In the last couple of years, I've been right on with every guy who's gone on to become productive. You know why? I keep the guys in the box in college. I don't project them what they might look like in the NFL because you know what? And by the way, who's the one guy that Vic Fangio constantly refers to when you're talking about great safety play? It's Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
And this guy, Malaki Starks, reminds me of, here, folks, Kyle Hamilton, Notre Dame. Not Kyle Hamilton, Ravens. Kyle Hamilton when he was at Notre Dame. That's what I'm talking about when I'm looking at that guy. So, I mean, there's a difference there. All right. Well, let me ask you this now. Hey, before I move on to this question here, I want to get your thoughts on. By the way, please hit the like button. If you were going to start your franchise with a quarterback, he's the first pick. Nobody's on your team. This is an expansion team. This is not a
loaded like John team. McMullen. You guys are adding so many details to the exercise.
No, that's what Chase did. If you were starting a brand new team, they weren't talking about who's the best quarterback. If you had to pick 5 guys, I disagree with people. I don't think there's 6 quarterbacks in the league that I would start.
That's what I mean. This whole thing is after 6, it's done for me.
It is, right? They're all the same. They're like, couldn't you really go like this? 6 to 12, they're kind of the same dude.
After 6, you start talking about names like Herbert, Caleb Williams, Jordan Love, Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, Tua, Anthony Richardson, obviously not him, but Purdy, Murray. I'm just talking about like guys that are down list there. Like I'm not doing any of them. This is very easy.
Not even golf.
It's honestly really easy for me, this whole thing.
Yeah, me too.
Mahomes won. Easy. Three champions. Obviously, his roster needed a lot of help the last couple of years. It's not like the guy has been on a stacked squad. Mahomes, the resume speaks for itself. Getting the team over the top speaks for itself. The amount of times he's been there consistently speaks for itself. Mahomes is number 1. Number 2 is Jalen Hurts for me because I don't see the level of success in anybody else that he's had. And everybody tells me I shouldn't pick him because his roster is so good. And I'm like, well, why hasn't Josh Allen won? Why hasn't Joe Burrow won? Why haven't they haven't won because their roster's not good. So if they can't win because their roster's not good
right now.
I know that, but why are
you're assuming he's going to have
but you're taking away from Jalen for having a good roster when the other guys can't win without a good roster. The other guys
do more with less.
But they can't win without a good roster.
Wait a minute. Mahomes does.
Mahomes is the one for a reason.
Yeah. Name me one guy on that Buffalo Bills team that could start in Philly. None.
What, on their offense?
Yeah.
But you're missing my point. My point is that if you're going to take away from Josh or you're going to take away from Jalen for having a stacked roster, Why are you not taking away from Josh Allen for not winning without a stacked roster? That would insinuate both quarterbacks need to have a good roster to win.
Quarterback can still win with no matter who's on the team.
But he hasn't
13,
won.
14 wins.
But what has he won?
Wait a minute. That guy, again, this is building a team, not a team. You're putting winning into it. You're not going to win your first year.
I'm taking
You're an
Jalen.
expansion team.
I'm taking Jalen because I've seen Jalen go to every level, every program, every place since he hit puberty and has won.
Alabama, Oklahoma, and Philly.
Okay, good. So Jalen's entire career is attributed to all the teams he's had around him. You can take that approach. Again, I'm not going to argue. Putting him at 5 doesn't bother me.
Hey, by the way, did the Bama football team elevate after they put a better quarterback in?
What do you mean elevate? They were in the national championship.
Well, they actually won it with him.
And then they lost the next year without him.
Did they not win it with him?
They won it when he started 12 of the 13 games. 13 of the 13 games.
Did Tua win the national title for oh my God, you're trying to change the
I'm not changing the history. Dan, I went there. I lived that year.
Benched him.
He benched him in the national championship.
No, SEC title game at the half.
No, he did not. He benched him in the Natty. Jalen Hurts never came out before that half at Natty.
That's right. The following year, he played in the SEC
championship game when Tua got hurt, and he led him back and won the game.
Okay, so you got Hurts too. Who else do you have?
By the way, I want to say I don't think it's crazy for you to say Hurts at 5 at all. My point is, I think it's crazy to say you can't make a case for Hurts at 2. That's what I think is great. How could I not make a case for the guy at 2? He's been the winningest quarterback in the NFL since Patrick Mahomes. You can pick 5. It doesn't bother me. But to say there's no case to make for him at 2 is wild to me. Number 3, this was a tough one for me, 3 versus 4. And I went Joe Burrow over Josh Allen because I think Joe Burrow showed me – well, I think Joe Burrow is the most talented thrower of the football in the NFL, and I don't think it's relatively close. I have him at number 3.
I think he's better than Mahomes.
I do too. Definitely at throwing the ball. My problem and why I chose him over Allen is who's had the better roster the last 2 years? The Bills or the Chiefs?
There's no Kelsey on that Bills team.
I know, but Kelsey last year, let's be real, was not the
There's
same.
no Creed Humphrey on that team.
There's no Chris Jones on Buffalo. There's no.
Yeah, but I'm talking offensive guys here.
I know. I'm talking about there is 2 Hall of Famers for Mahomes. All right. Well, you could argue that they're comparable, but the reason I went with Burrow over Allen is I've seen Allen come up short, and I'm not knocking him for it. You're losing to a Hall of Fame player, a coach and quarterback.
A 2 MVP guy.
Not knocking him. But I went with Burrow because when Burrow had a team that was even close to good enough to get there, he did slay that dragon. Which to me says if I get a team that's close with Burrow, I think he'll go further than what Allen will take.
You see that conversation you're having here? The one thing that I will never do is this. When Hurts gets in that game with Mahomes, he's the only quarterback in the league that there's a rivalry. Okay? I mean, he's 2-2. You can make the argument every time he's played him, he's looked better. I mean, so the eyeball test in that game, the game a year ago in KC, when they went to KC and won. Yeah. I mean, the year before, whatever it was early in the year when they beat him there in Kansas City. I don't know, man. I mean, so who do you got at 4?
4, I got Josh Allen, very close to 3. I mean, it was basically a pick 'em for me. I went with Burrow just because he went to the bowl, and I thought, I just think he's so damn good. Josh Allen, very close at 4, unbelievable player. By the way, any of these top 4, I would take and be very happy with any of them. All right. So I'm not trying to criticize any of these players. They're all amazing players. I have Allen 4. 5, I have Lamar, but I think there's a big drop off from 4 to 5. And I'm not saying that as a knock on Lamar. I don't know if Lamar is the type of quarterback that's going to build a championship organization. I think he's the most talented player from an athletic trait. I think he's one of the most unique quarterbacks we've ever seen in the NFL. I think he's arguably one of the top quarterbacks in NFL history. But I think for this exercise, I'm looking for a guy I can build a Super Bowl winner around. And Lamar is 5 for me, and there's a significant gap from 4 to 5. 3 to 4 with Burrow to Allen is right there.
Let me
4
ask.
to 5 for me is a big gap.
Here's when we're talking about this exercise, and I got where Chase Daniels is coming from. I'm looking for a quarterback that is salary cap proof. And what I mean by that is there's so much turnover every year on a roster. The one roster that has not turned over in 3 years has been the Eagles on offense. It's just not turned over. The right guard has only been the one position that's been a turnover. It's either
Outside
been
of right guard and like Queasy
it's either been an upgrade from look what you did at running back. You went from Sanders to Swift to Saquon. You upgraded. There's never been on that side of the ball players being lost except, again, for the interchangeable right guard position.
Yeah, and like Quez Watkins, which, let's be real, that's not a consequential player. Yeah.
But these other teams, the Chiefs lose players. The Bills lose players. You know who else has not done that? Has been the Bengals. They did lose Joe Mixon. That was a calculated mistake by them. Well, you know what? Even a year ago, though, Zander, he had 1,100 yards.
Yeah, I like Joe, but it's like
you have to have that.
It's like the Eagles moving on, and maybe this is a little bit too far. Like I think it's maybe like 80% of this is it's like the Eagles moving on from Miles Sanders or DeAndre Swift. Like those guys had great seasons, like you just said. They had 1,200 yards, but the Eagles were looking for the game changer. You know, I never thought Joe Mixon was the game changer for them. He was a good back, but I never thought he was the game changer. Now, what's his name? Sidney Brown's brother, who's over there, Chase Brown, is just not cutting it. I mean, they got to get somebody else. But no, you're right. You're right about that. There's no turnover for the Eagles offense. I agree. I mean, that's fair. That's fair.
But that's because GM is a smart guy. So here's your guys: Mahomes, Hurts, Burrow, Allen, and Lamar. And again, I think you could drop them in a hat, except for the.
I did 7. I got 2 names left. If you want me to finish.
All right, let me hear.
I got Jaden Daniels at 6, and I got C.J. Stroud at 7.
I don't hate that.
I just like what he showed you in 2 years. He's just a young player. I think if you put the right team around him, I think he's got a bright future. So that's why I went with C.J. Stroud there over guys like Goff or 30-year-old players where I already feel like Goff is like I actually like Goff. Like I defended Goff a lot last year. I like Goff a lot. But here's my thing with Goff. I think you already kind of, and I hope this is probably a wrong analogy, but like you kind of like blew your load. Like you had this sick team around him and you didn't make it. So it's like, where can you go? Like even with Jalen, if you're going to say to me, well, he had a stacked team. Yeah, and he won. He did it, right? Like he did it. Jared did it. So I'm like, I don't know. With the other guys, I think if I built the beast around him, I could see it. A couple other names. Maybe.
That's a great, that last part of your take. Hey, Sills, they did build he has a stacked roster. How many stacked rosters have you ever seen in the NFL and they're not win?
Exactly.
A ton.
It's like it's an old debate in sports. Why don't all-star teams win, right? I mean, it's like you got to have the right guy.
You're right.
You know,
they did, but you know what? They had a stacked team, but you know what? He completed the deal and he played in the 2 best games that you could possibly have: the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. So who the other? I mean, so you have Daniels and who's the other guy?
Daniels and Stroud. And then the only other names, and I didn't rank these, so I'm just going to throw out a couple names, not in order or anything. The only other names I think that could reasonably make this list are, I think even a Caleb Williams. I just think he's got intangible, like traits that you're like, I could build around that. Now you haven't seen a lot, so it's a big projection. You've never seen him realize that upside, so it's a bigger projection on him. A guy like Jordan Love, maybe if you made it perfect around him, I think you see some traits there, some skill set that maybe you like. But after that, I mean, you're really in la-la land now, bro. I mean, even at Jordan Love, I think I'm in la-la land. Caleb Williams, I'm in la-la land a little bit. Here's it. Ready? Eagles fans might not like this one. You could put Dak at 10 probably. Like, I think Dak is one of the few quarterbacks that I know he struggles in playoffs, so this is why I would never pick him.
So does Lamar.
You know, Dak does, like, his anticipatory throws are some of the best in the NFL. Like he's one of those guys who will throw a receiver open, who will thread the ball in a tight window. He's always been very good at that. So I think that's a trait maybe you would like. But again, we're in no man's land at this point.
See, for me, man, I looked at that list yesterday and I went, there's really, it just shows you how the desperate, I happen to agree with you. I think the quarterbacks that are going to go in the first round, they're going to be Cam, they're going to be Shador, they're going to be that Paxton Dart kid. I think Jalen Milrow.
Paxton Dart. Jackson.
That Jalen Milrow kid. And that Syracuse kid probably.
McCord.
Either the Syracuse kid or that Louisville guy that they like.
Prep kid, McCord. Yeah.
I mean, there could be 5 guys go in the NFL draft that, guess what? In any other good year, those guys, you heard Jay Gruden. Jay Gruden he's not alone. He thinks Shador Sanders is 3rd-round talent.
I know. Jay was, I didn't, yeah. Jay's
here's the guy that had to work with RG3, and I don't know. I mean, here again, Burrow, I moved mine around. I moved the 2 and the 3 because of what you said with the winning. I have Burrow 1. I think Burrow's the best. He's the best comp I've seen to Brady in the pocket.
Dude, Burrow is surgical from the pocket.
I mean, you heard Arians what he said. He goes, that guy's the real deal. There's nothing like that in the league. He's so good from the pocket. He sees the entire game. It's just a shit show that he's in Cincinnati, man. I mean, I'd love to have seen a GM like Howie around him and building a team with a decent owner. That'd be something to watch.
One other name, though, that you mentioned yesterday, and this was when I got pissed in the chat.
Was Herbert?
Yeah. I'm like, look, I like the traits, but like, this is also part of why I have Jalen at 2, because 2 of the best games of Jalen Hurts' career came in the Super Bowl. Now, I know that that's not a perfect indicator of how good a player is, but like, I'm not enamored by you having a pretty regular season. And then when push comes to shove and it's actually time to win games to cement your legacy, you throw 4 freaking interceptions. That to me is egregious and is enough to wipe you off my list entirely, because I don't want a guy who gets scared when the lights go on. I mean, do you want to run, you practice for the play, and in the practice, the guy's great, but if you get out there and the lights turn on, the guy forgets what to do.
So what you're going to do with Herbert is you're going to hold that game. I'm not saying you're wrong against him, but you're not going to hold a 17 turnover season against Jalen.
Well, Jalen Hurts has accompanying factors that overcome that hurdle. He's won or performed exceptionally well in 2 Super Bowls. I've never seen Herbert perform well when the lights are bright, ever.
It's the reason why I think Herbert's going to make a turn is because he's got Harbaugh now. He's got.
I'm not saying
it's better. If better coaching helps Jalen, why wouldn't it help Herbert?
Yeah, but Herbert right now to this date has never showed me that when the opportunity is in front of him to seize and to elevate and to make the Chargers a name in the NFL, he shrinks. Like, I don't want a shrinking violet. And that's probably a bigger factor for me than a lot of people who are doing this exercise. I value that specifically very high. So you might not, John might not, other people might not.
You were starting an expansion team and you were at the combines and you saw how and remember, you've got the advantage of hindsight now. Okay.
That's true.
If you're drafting a guy out of college, you're taking Hurts over Herbert. The Eagles didn't even.
Well, I mean, if you're saying remove that what Jalen Hurts has done in his career,
you're taking into account what that guy did.
Yeah.
In his okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm talking about starting a football team, drafting a guy. Who would you take?
Jalen Hurts.
Not Jalen Hurts, Eagle. Jalen Hurts, Alabama.
Yeah, but that's not what the exercise is. The exercise is as it stands today. When Chase Daniel ranked him at 10, he didn't say, I would take him at 10 coming out like, if I didn't know what he would do in the pros. He was saying, I'm ranking him at 10 with all the information I have about the player. With all the information I have about the player.
So
you're right. I have had some, the benefit of.
Well, no. I think you're right, because I think that's what I heard too. So who has a better arm, Herbert or Hurts?
Herbert.
has a better pocket presence in the
Herbert.
pocket? Okay. Who reads defenses better?
Herbert, because he has to. But Jalen got a lot better at it last year. You could argue it's a push because was he reading defenses when he threw 4 picks in the playoff game? Or what happened?
One game. I mean, the
Because
guy's
Jalen Hurts, wait a second. When Steve Spaggs said, I'm taking away your running back, Jalen Hurts dropped dimes. And that's reading a defense.
Who's more accurate?
Push. Jalen's a very accurate thrower. 71% completion percentage last year. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of balls that are off target. Might not have the same volume.
Because he doesn't have a lot of volume.
All right, that's fine. You're asking me accuracy.
Okay. All right. I'm saying the guy throws 650 times compared to a guy who throws 390
times. The sample size is bigger, but that's not what
you have more opportunity of failure. But here, I don't mind the top 5. And I took Herbert out of that because I kind of the flopping around in the postseason kind of bugs me too. So I got Burrow, Mahomes. And the only reason I put Lamar in the top 5 is because he has, and when you watch him, you look at him and you're like, that fucking guy's great. Come on, I know.
No, he's a special player, man. Special.
I know. And then I did put Hurts in there. I mean,
I'm surprised you had Lamar ahead of Hurts, not going to lie. Like, Lamar to me is like this transcendent talent.
I think Hurts is smarter than him.
Yeah, I think that's one of your best takes on Jalen is the way he manages a football game. And that's a big part of being a quarterback. It's not about being the flashiest person on the team. It's not. You're the leader of the team. You conduct the way the game goes. If you don't have a handle on that or a grip on it, I think that's a big deduction for you. The other thing that's a big deduction is, if you like you just went through this exercise with Herbert. Yeah, he's got more talent. But when I needed that talent and when the lights turned on and it was like, okay, you check this box, you check this box.
It's the Rogers-Brady conversation.
Now I'm trotting you out. Now I need you to actually do it. Like Jalen does better in those moments than what people think he can do, while Herbert does worse than what people think he can do. I want the dude who rises up. I want the dude who doesn't blink when you can't afford for him to blink.
Do you think at all, and you exclude this in your conversation here with this, do you think AJ and Devontae help make that a better and easier when it comes to accuracy when you can't name one wide receiver on the Los Angeles Chargers team?
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt they help. But here's what I have a hard time doing. I have a hard time taking that away from Jalen. Like, I will acknowledge that it matters, and they obviously help. But I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I'm not going to take Jalen because he has good talent. It's like, why am I using that against him?
So you're assuming, though, that he would be as accurate with a lesser guy running routes. Now, I'm not saying you. I'm saying I'm talking out loud here.
I'm more assuming that the intangibles will make up if he gets to that moment. Because if he didn't have pass catchers, all right, maybe the accuracy would wane. But if I needed that dude in a big game, I've seen enough to know he's going to rise up. I've seen enough.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Real. Jahan Dotson was involved in the Super Bowl. Like I think Jalen Hurts proved, especially in those last 2 games last year, it doesn't matter what you do. When it's a big game, I will dissect. I will beat you the way we need to beat you. If it's Saquon, it's Saquon. If it's not, it's not. And I will still get the job done. And he proved that not in 1 Super Bowl, Sills, but in 2 Super Bowls.
My last question for you. What is more likely Howie Roseman to do draft night? Trade up, trade down, pick at 32, trade the pick for an already established player.
I think that's unlikely because I do think they want a rookie contract. All right. So I'm going to rule that out. I think trading up is more likely than most people are giving credence to. Like, you hear a guy like John, who's obviously plugged in with the organization, and he says, this is a trade down draft. Everybody wants to trade down, to look for the Eagles to trade down.
I agree with that.
I agree too. But where I do see the Eagles, the chance of them jumping up is, dude, Malaki, perfect example. Walter Nolan, perfect example. James Spears. Now, it all depends on their player evaluation, by the way. Like, if they don't like Malaki or if they don't like a guy, they're obviously not going to jump up for him. But with the way the board could fall, with the way other teams might be trying to move out, I could see Howie saying, while everybody's zigging and trying to get out, I'm going to zag and go get the guy I like. I could see that. But I think the most likely is trade out, grab another pick, either this year or next year. Maybe add move it. Then you have 2 second-round picks. I think that's the most likely is trade out. I'd like to see him trade up, though. My preference would be trade up, go get your guy.
Let me sneak one more in. I got it down here. Okay, so the Jordan Davis 50-year option is kind of flying under the radar here for this team.
It is. I agree.
And there's no talk about it. There's more talk of Goedert. Okay. I mean, hey, by the way, did you like that pick? That what I threw out there, sending Dallas Goedert? That was the conversation. Dallas Goedert to the Giants.
Yeah, I would do that.
The Giants called him, but the Giants wanted the Eagles to drop a 5th in. Now, I couldn't find out if it was this year or next year 5th, but they wanted to send Kayvon Thibodeau to the Eagles for Dallas Goedert and the Eagles giving a 5th for Kayvon Thibodeau, who was a first rounder 2 years ago. I don't think the player's awful.
No, he's not awful, but doesn't this Sills maybe show you there's a silver lining here, or at least something that you can take from this about the Eagles' philosophy? Because I think anybody would say take that trade. Like, even if you don't think Kayvon's that great, it's like, if I'm going to lose Goddard anyway, I'll give up a 5th, one that we have
good.
4
I don't
of,
think he's
to add an edge rusher to a room that we have a lot of questions. I think anybody logically would take that trade. The Eagles aren't doing it. Why? They don't want to pay that player. Is it about the player or is it about the money? I don't know. And that's where I keep going back to.
Or position.
This team moved on from Gardner Johnson. This team let Milton and Sweat walk. This team is cost cutting. Now, somebody was mad at me yesterday. Oh, why are you playing the cap? You're not Howie. I know I'm not Howie. I'm not trying to be Howie, dumbass. I'm just trying to make an educated take on what this team might do. They're cutting cap everywhere. Are they really going to trade Goddard, who's another cap casualty, and trade for a player and then pay him buku bucks before they pay Carter, before they pay Nolan, before they pay Coop or Quinion or any of those guys? I don't see it for that reason, and I think that's probably why, if this trade is real or was out there, why they probably said no. I think it's about the player. Now, it also does come down to
Boomer Esiason confirmed it, that the Giants had contacted about the availability.
Yeah, I knew they contacted about Goddard. I just don't know about the Thibodeau part.
But Boomer was the one who told me about the particulars.
Okay, the Thibodeau part. All right, yeah, because that's the thing I don't know.
By the way, Boomer Esiason's the morning show host at WFAN in New York.
Yeah, and he's a very plugged-in guy. We've had him on here many times. I mean, you've gotten him on. Credit to you. Yep. So yeah, he's a very plugged-in guy. Obviously, I'm not disputing it. I'm just saying, it all comes down, I guess, to player evaluation. But I've yet to see a player that the Eagles have gone over. Well, obviously, none of us have seen it, that they've gone over the top for this year. The only thing we have seen, Sills, is cost cutting. That's it.
That's right.
That's it. We've seen C.J. Gardner-Johnson go.
We're downgrading.
Dallas Goedert go. Milton went. C.J. All these guys.
It's downgrading.
So if they're not going to make the move for Thibodeau, maybe they don't like the player. That could be it too. But the other part of it is maybe simple is take the most obvious explanation. It's that they don't want to pay a guy right now. They want a rookie.
Well, here you got a lot. You got 3 more years with him on a rookie deal.
Thibodeau? I think he's due for a contract next year.
I think he's only been there 2. Right? Hasn't he only been? I thought
he's going to be.
I thought he was going into his 3rd year.
Yeah, well, if you're maybe that changes a little bit. If you don't have to give him a bag of money, I don't see why you would say no to that. He was
drafted 2 years ago. I don't think he was drafted 3 years ago.
No, he played 3. He's played 3 years now. 22, 23, 24 season.
Then he is eligible.
Yeah, but so he's in Jordan Davis range. He's going to pick up the 5th-year option or give him a contract or let the deal expire after this year. So he's a 1-year rental if you don't like him. I kind of still like it as a 1-year rental. I'm not going to lie.
Me too.
I mean, if we're getting rid of Goddard and we need edge help.
My only problem would be is that I'm sending a really good player to the Giants that makes them better, and it's in my division, and I got to see Zach Ertz and that guy twice a year.
Yeah, but here's the problem: you're not worried about the Giants, are you?
No,
Like, that's the thing. Like, I think you could send Goddard and
If
say,
they had
"Hey,
a decent quarterback, how about this? You put Dallas Goedert in that building with Malik Neighbors, and you got Dallas Goedert, and you sign Aaron Rodgers. How you feeling
what's our
about
offensive line look like?
What?
What's our offensive line look like?
The left tackle is one of the best in the league.
The Thomas guy, he's good.
Stink.
Outside of that, they stink. Can't block a freaking traffic cone. So.
But they would be better if you put Aaron Rodgers in there with Dallas Goedert and Malik Neighbors.
They would be better, but Sills, you know this, man. You ain't.
Oh, I'm not saying Eagle, man. I'm not saying like that. I'm talking about.
No, they would be better. Yeah, you'd probably add 2 wins to 2-3 wins, maybe. Maybe.
Because again, okay. So me, dude, I just still see picking Malik or trading out, because I'll say it again. I heard John say this about the guy. What was his name? No, Walter Nolan. So if Walter Nolan, I'll ask you. I want to. If Walter Nolan's at 32, and Malaki Starks is at 32, isn't your first inclination to ask the question, why is Walter Nolan at 32?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Because he's a productive player, obviously has a high talent, high motor, checks out on basically everything. So if he drops now I have heard people say about character concerns on him. I don't know what they are.
That's low-hanging fruit stuff.
It is. Again, I'm just saying would that be the only reason? I mean, he would fall. Now, here's the thing. I'm an Eagles fan, and I'm fully acknowledging my Eagles glasses go on when these conversations come up, because I've seen many instances now with Big Dom in the building where I hear from inside sources, I hear from people like John, I hear from people, like D Gunn in the past, who talk to people in the organization, and Big Dom does all the homework on this stuff. If Big Dom gives the clearance, the Eagles feel good about drafting him. So
just how people have to know how this works. The FBI, former FBI agents are all part of NFL security. Every NFL team has a guy like Big Dom. With the NFL security guys, get this, and this is so you know, Zander. Do you know how Aaron Donald found out that he was being stalked by a stalker who was sending him? NFL security called him and told him that there were stalkers that were trying to get to him and his family and sending threatening letters.
Yeah.
He had no idea it was going on. So NFL security watches almost all of us still with the NFL deal. Yeah. I will get a note from a guy on Twitter from the league office. Hey, Dan, you might want to take a look at this here. Somebody sends threatening message. I get that from the
I believe it. Yeah, I believe it.
So again, that comes with just something that they've always done forever. So you're right.
Anywhere there's liability in the NFL, it makes sense. Remember, you guys are public figures because of the NFL, so they're protecting that.
Yep. That's right. And the Players Association, that's part of the collective bargaining agreement, that stays intact. On any guy who's ever really played, there's I've gotten them where people have threatened me and my family, this and that's why we have a gated house where I have to hide my truck sometimes. Anyway, so he will do that. But for me, if I'm sitting at 32, and I heard John say this, so if both guys were rated at 91 and you had a 91 rating on them, and Zander, that means this. So you think you're bringing him in to back up Moro Jomo, or you bring him in to compete with Moro Jomo on that left end spot?
I mean, Moro, I like you, but you're a 7th round pick. You're probably going to want a big contract next year. Like, go ahead and sit down, buddy.
Okay, so in your opinion,
same role as he was last year. You're a rotational piece. You're going to battle it out in camp, but I'm not going to not draft Walter Nolan because we have Moro Jomo.
Walter Nolan's not beating out Milton Williams. So my point is that you're creating a competition by drafting that guy.
You mean Moro Jomo, or you mean like if Milton was still here, he wouldn't beat him out?
He's not beating Milton Williams out.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. But he'll battle it out with Moro, and I'm not in love with you, Moro. Let's be real. You're going to want a contract soon. Even if you produce, the Eagles aren't going to pay you a contract because their money's tied up in a bunch of other defensive tackles. So your time here is already coming to an end soon. Let's get a guy in the room that we have a future with.
But here's where I'm going with this. So then that means if you're drafting a defensive tackle, you're not sold at that position either, because that guy's being brought in to be a starter, not a rotation guy at 32.
Yeah, I also think there is an element.
But if you draft Malaki, he's starting for you, dude.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. I think Walter would too, to be honest with you. But I see what you're saying. I think the lines, though, are a little different. Like, I think the Eagles view the lines as a little bit different. That's why in years past, you have seen the Eagles draft linemen at times, even as early as Cam Jurgens. If you remember that, there was a little bit of backlash from the fan base of, why are you drafting a center? We have Jason Kelsey right now. We have other needs. The Eagles kind of brushed that a little bit to the side with lines. All right. They want players. They want quality players and a lot of them on both lines. That's been their philosophy. That's one of the philosophies of why we're a good organization year in and year out. I would not be mad if they added a body there, even if it wasn't a bona fide starter or like that. I think you got to view them a little differently because of how important the trenches are. But you're not wrong. If you draft Malaki Starks, he's like Quinion last year. He's your starter week 1. If you draft Nolan, it does look different.
Doesn't it look to you that for Vic Fangio, Vic thinks he can replace the line guys and edge guys better than he can the corners and safety? Because look at the volume of picks he's bringing in.
Yeah.
I mean, he's looking for somebody at the edge. But last year, you guys, as I mentioned, you weren't special at edge. You were special. You were special up the middle, right? Linebacker was special. Carter was special. You had turnovers in the safety position. You were special. And by the way, when you played 2 wide safety corners, I mean, those guys were really great cover corners in a zone. They were great. But who made the biggest impact on your secondary a year ago? Who was your rookie? Cooper DeJean, not Quinton Mitchell. You know why? Because Q's in the middle of the field. He's around the action. He's
Coop's
the one
in the middle of the field. Yeah.
He's the one teacup. Yeah, Cooper's the one in the middle of the field. Teacup and Henry. He's the one getting the pick 6 in the Super Bowl. He's the one that's showing up in the middle of the field covering tight ends. Just saying, dude. The guy that Cooper DeJean has elevated that slot spot more than what Avonte Maddox did.
And that's why Vic doesn't want to move him out, Sills.
Hey, how about this? Somebody brought a great point up. You know what? He may not get a $20 million or $30 million bill playing. Would the Eagles ever entertain, because he had such a massive impact on the team, changing the game and making that a high paid position and reward him, because they rewarded Barkley? They've rewarded people. They're going to reward Carter.
Yeah.
Hey, okay. Possible. He's not a corner. How about you give him $25 million to play that nickel slot, and you make him happy? Money makes everyone happy.
Yeah, I wish the NFL was more like that. Like where you play players.
They don't do that with tight ends. You're right.
Just like pay a player based on their value, not like their position. Like Will Fries, you just got $88 million because he's a guard. You know what I mean? It's like, bro, who's more valuable? And even like Saquon, I know he just got a big contract and he's making money, but like, I love Devontae, but who was more valuable to the Eagles, Devontae or Saquon Barkley? Right? Like, and Saquon still, with the highest paid running back in the NFL, with another new deal, doesn't even come close to making the same.
That's how they control the players, though.
Yeah, it is. Because they attach a group, a position group, and then they put like a percentage of label you. I think a lot of people don't understand that's a big way the cap works, right? Like quarterbacks will make 13% or whatever the number will be.
There's no $20 million tight end.
Right. And that's because of the way that they have it structured in percentage-wise on who they want to pay where to make up the salary cap. So,
like the linebackers, you're going to make 20 most. You're not going to make 35. You're not making that. O-linemen, left tackles are going to make – look at a center position. The center position's a $13, $14, $15 million position. It's not a $25, $30 million. Why? Because they categorize you, and that's how they keep you controlled. Zander, do we have any supers?
Let me check them out. Abe checks in. What up, Abe? Should we expect a scheme change on D2 to players?
No way. No way.
Abe, 4 coordinators straight, same scheme. They finally got the guy who runs the scheme, who created the scheme. All right. They went from Jonathan Gannon. They went to Sean Desai. They had Matt Patricia. And then obviously last year they got Vic Fangio. So they're not changing anything.
It's one thing to keep the scheme, but it's another thing to keep the scheme and you have success with the scheme where you've been to 2 Super Bowls, winning records, division titles. Why would you change the scheme?
And look at how much better the authentic person who created it did for you last year versus the knockoff. The guys who
you had the guy who made the light bulb.
Right, exactly. Instead of the dude
selling it. Instead of the guy who sells the light bulb, you had the guy who made the light bulb.
Yep, exactly. Brian Pumper checks in. What's up, Pump? We have the next Jimmy Graham in Project 89, Super Bowl champion Johnny W's. You fools dare question his greatness. Johnny Wilson is literally tragic. In fact, he will be cut in training camp this year.
Yep.
See you, Johnny.
Yep. Unfortunately, he will be. Again, you know what he'll be a product of? He was a tweener between a tight end and a wide receiver in height and in speed. And unfortunately, he wasn't good at being one or the other. And so I listen, I liked him as a red zone potential. I did. I mean, I just don't think there's a spot on this team. You know what, though, Zander? There could be a spot somewhere else for him.
All right, so you liked him as a red zone potential. Yeah, I did too. And then I watched him in the Super Bowl. You know, I needed you for one play, guy. Jalen had a flicker past you under duress. He had to hopefully trust his receiver.
Get him in the hands.
Who was on the field occupying space in the Super Bowl, and the ball hits his hands like a water balloon, and it falls to the turf.
I know.
And in that moment, I said, I don't care if the score is 30-0 or however bad we were whooping the Chiefs' ass in that Super Bowl. I said, get that guy off my squad.
Whooping.
Sorry, Pump. Brian Pump again. Sills, I feel Jordan Davis' job is in question. Anyone could do his job. We got that one. Johnny Mack would be a solid filler. Johnny Mack Sills would be a solid filler.
Man. You think they pick it up?
I do. I think the Eagles.
I don't think it's that expensive. 11-2 for him.
Well, let me just tell you something, man, about Howie.
If they pick it up, they're not giving him a 3-year extension because.
No, they're not. I'm not saying they're doing that. I'm talking about specifically right now. You know, we talked about Howie yesterday and like where he learned how to be GM and under Joe Banner and all those things and like what makes Howie great. Well, the other thing that Howie that does a lot differently than Banner is he's more political. Like, remember when John told you Nick Sirianni is a more political coach? Well, I think Howie's more political with the players. Like, he doesn't want the players to feel like they're transactional, even though they are to Howie. He tried, like, you see him hug players. Like, I don't think he wants to upset the apple cart. And the easiest thing for him to do right now to maintain camaraderie, to maintain togetherness, to maintain a sense of team on that defense is make Jordan happy. And I know that might not be the smart thing to do, but it's not a high risk. It's not like you're paying him $30 million, paying him 12, whatever. Do it. Keep Jalen Carter happy. Keep all the other people, Zach Bond happy. Keep Nolan Smith happy. Keep everybody together this year. If I have to upset the apple cart, I'll do it down the line in a different way.
I'm going to show you what GMs do. Here's a piece of paper. It's got Dan Morgan's name on it. He's the general manager of the Carolina Panthers. On it also is the travel secretary's name. I think you'll be really good. You're a good player. I'm taking Billy Beane from Moneyball. And this is how good GMs are.
I know.
You know what, Zander? The bottom line is, that sounds all nice. Howie is honest. Here's where you are.
I know,
Dallas.
but
here's where you are, Dallas. You're a casualty of the cap. We love you. You want to stay? The only way you stay is if you take a pay cut. You know, Zander, nobody wants,
that's when you're at push
wants to have reach arounds.
I know.
In situations like this, you want to have a guy go like this. I really like you. I wanted you to stay. Here's the general manager's name, Andrew Berry in Cleveland. You've got the secretary on here. Hey, I just moved my family here, and I'm really thinking about, the parade we just had. Yeah, I get it, man. Business is business, but here we are. Zander, players in pro football and in pro sports, they just want to be dealt with like professionals.
I know, but I think
and being like that sometimes gets the GMs in trouble when you have. Remember, never fall in love with your guys. Fall in like with them.
I know you're right about that, but here's the thing. I think what you just said, what you just explained is exactly what Howie will do when push comes to shove. Goddard's not playing this year without a new deal. Okay, goodbye. He's not there yet.
He said this to Hassan.
But you're not there yet with Jordan Sills. You're there next year.
Don't you think he said this to Hassan? Listen, you've been so productive here. We really like you. Here's Joe Douglas's number. We just traded you here. Listen, I appreciate everything you did here. Have a great one here.
Yeah, he said that.
And to me, because you know why? That's how you keep relationships with agents.
Yeah.
That's how you keep relationships with GMs. Doing this to a player, Xander. Hey, fuck you. You suck. I fucking hate the way we negotiated. I can't stand. That's not how you keep the rapport he has and all the avenues. This guy's secret, Howie Roseman's secret, is how he deals with agents and other GMs. Why do you think he can get on the horn and call Mickey Loomis again and try to fleece that guy for another player? You know why? It's not going, hey, I got him. That's not what that
No,
guy
I know.
does.
Howie has said off the record to John that he hates when people put out he fleeces people. He hates it. It's one of his least favorite media headlines because it makes his job harder.
Absolutely harder, man. There is no doubt about it. So GMs don't get this. GMs don't want to show other GMs up. That's not what the media will do that. We will.
Yeah, it's like a respect thing.
Yeah, dude, because they've got it. Hey, come draft day. You mean to tell me Howie doesn't want to have the Saints as a part of a team? How do you know that Kellen Moore doesn't call him? And because they had a shitty relationship and how they dealt with, dude, if you're the Saints, people would be like, I don't want to deal with it. Well, Howie gave him every chance to put the kid in their starting lineup, Zach Bond. They never did it. Howie did it. Hey, guess what? I'm going to deal with Howie Roseman. If I'm Mickey Loomis, you know why? He sees something on our staff that maybe we didn't see from now on. I'm not trading that guy. How come Howie wants that guy? Wait a minute. Howie wants the 32nd pick and he wants to get a quarterback? Well, wait a minute. Howie goes, well, I want a first rounder next year. And you're going to sit there. Believe me, Xander, if the Saints call him to trade for a quarterback, that's a 1 next year. Now, if the Saints are calling to trade for a wide receiver, that's a 2 and a 3 this year. But a quarterback, that changes the game.
Yeah, I agree.
That changes the game. All right, my friend. I appreciate. Hey, dude, you guys are doing a great job, man. Those topics are really great.
Thanks, bro.
John just goes, hey, I'll take him a 10. I was like, wait a minute.
Johnny Mac doesn't like hypothetical topics. All right. It's very hard to create a show in April 17th without having a little bit of hypothetical. I mean, a little bit of hypothetical, but I digress. Thank you for supporting the show, brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Xander. I appreciate you, brother, man. Absolutely fantastic. Have a great one, man.
Thank you, man. Thanks, everybody.
That was awesome stuff, man. Great. Hey, by the way, the conversations are going to heat up. 7 days to tonight when it comes to the NFL draft. I am going to throw this topic off at you next. By the way, don't forget, Brent Musburger is going to join us. He was just recently awarded the Pete Rozelle Award, and he will be going into the Hall of Fame in August when the class goes in and they have the Hall of Fame game. So I can't wait to talk to Brent. Brent was the voice of college football along with Keith Jackson. I wrote this down here. Here were my 5 guys that I've covered in all of the stuff going on with Lee Corso. And I'll say something about Corso before we take a timeout. Here, and I put these down, my top 5 voices of college football during my playing days and during my broadcasting days. 1, Keith Jackson, legendary voice. Every kid on the planet wanted his name spoken by Keith Jackson. Every kid, every single kid wanted Keith Jackson to call his name in a broadcast. Brent Musburger, another one. Every kid wanted to be interviewed by Brent Musburger. He called so many of my games because he worked with CBS and he worked with Eric Parsegian. Charlie Jones. I love Charlie Jones. He called the national championship games. Very seldom was college football outside of the Rose Bowl on NBC. We were on NBC a bunch of times, which was not heard of back then. So Charlie Jones. Beano Cook. I had a chance to meet Beano Cook. I thought Beano was the voice of college football forever. I loved Beano. And then the last one is Lee Corso. It's funny, Lee Corso drafted me for the USFL for the Orlando Renegades. And I remember going up and meeting him. And I'm talking about the original USFL. Lee was the head coach and the general manager of the Orlando Renegades. And he lived in Orlando all the way up until right now, where he announced today his retirement. And I went up. I met with Lee. I can't remember who the owner was, but I met with Lee Corso, and they were going to draft me in the first round of the USFL draft. And I remember coming back, and Jimmy goes, "Do you really want to do this?" I said, "Jimmy, they're offering me a lot of money." He goes, "Dude, you're going to be a top 5 pick. Do you really want to do this?" And I go, "No." And he showed me the letter that I show to you guys all the time, that the Patriots want to see me, and the Patriots want to draft me in the first round. Okay. So I came back and I decided at the very end not to do it. I was going to go to the USFL. That's right. Brent Musburger, you are looking live at Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. That's right. Those were great, man. Absolutely awesome. Musburger will join us at 5:30. Don't forget, my friends, I appreciate everybody coming aboard. Please hit that like button. Don't forget my great friends at Morgan & Morgan. With over $30 billion recovered, the #1 track record when it comes to the top injury law firm in America. That's what Morgan & Morgan is. These folks go out and they get results. The folks on what they're doing in California. Houses burned down. People dropped insurance. Morgan & Morgan is in there cleaning house right now to make sure that those families don't get it taken advantage of from those insurance companies, and they're getting restitution for those families. This is a business that is owned by family members, and it's family run. Ultima, John, Dan, who's been on here, I've showed you what it's about. Morgan & Morgan is not just one of these corporate companies. This is a company that is family run, and it's been that way for over 35 years. I told you about the family here in PA. Almost $30 million they got in recovery. The insurance company went in and wanted to only give them $650,000. Not happening. Down in Florida, a family got $13 million in recovery. They only offered them like $300,000 or something like that. That's not going to happen. If you're ever injured, this is the easiest decision you'll ever make in your life. Go to forthepeople.com/big cells or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big cells or pound law 529. And do me a favor, you tell them Big Cell sent you.